Hi, everybody. We're going to wait another 30 seconds to a minute to give people a chance to get into the webinar. Welcome to everybody who's joining us. The numbers are still creeping up, so we'll give it a few more seconds. Okay, well, the numbers have held steady for a few seconds there, so we can go ahead and get started. On behalf of the NUN Ireland team, I want to welcome you to today's Know Before You Go webinar. I'll start with just an overview on the next slide of what we're going to cover today. First, you're going to get to meet the team, all the people behind the scenes preparing for your arrival in Ireland. We're going to give you an overview of Dublin, of UCD, and the program, including and most especially talking about academics. We're going to give you some advice on how to prepare for your departure to Ireland, a bit of health and safety information, a little bit about thinking ahead to coming to Boston in January, and some action steps to take between now and when you depart for Ireland. If you were able to join us in Boston for Campus Days 2 weeks ago, a lot of this information will be review, but one, repetition is good, and two, we do have some new information added in, so be sure to stay focused. If you weren't able to join us in Boston, so wonderful to have you here today. Some of this information you will have seen on the website or in your Canvas modules that all the students were supposed to have completed by August 1st. So, but again, repetition is good. And here today, you'll also have the opportunity to ask questions. If you have a question, you can put it in the Q&A feature in Zoom. There's a whole team of people behind the scenes who are furiously answering questions as we go throughout the webinar today. But first, let's meet the team on the next slide. I'm Melanie Burkett. I am the Global Experience Office Associate Director who works with the program. And I will be the primary point of contact for families once students arrive in Ireland. And I'll hand it over to Maggie.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maggie Unzen, and I am the Assistant Director with Global Student Success. So I'm the Boston-based staff. I work under the Student Life umbrella, working specifically with Nick, who will introduce himself in just a bit here, to provide resources to your students. So really excited to be here today, and I will pass it on now to Jode.
Yeah, thanks, Maggie. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, depending on where in the world you are. My name is Jode. It was a pleasure to meet some of you a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, at our campus day. But for those of you who I have not yet had the pleasure of meeting, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Jode. I am the program supervisor at the NUN Ireland site. I've been running the show there for the past couple of years, and I'm very excited to have this opportunity to take through a new cohort of students. And alongside my partner, Nick, we will be the on-site leads of the site in Dublin. Our faces will be the first you see when you get off the plane in Ireland, and we will be the last you see as you are heading back home in December. And with that, I'd like to pass it over to Nick to introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Gendron. I am the Global Student Success Manager for the NUN Ireland site this year. I have been with the NUN program this will be my 4th cycle. So I've worked at the Greece location, Portugal, Czech Republic, and now Ireland. So have a lot of experience working with the program and students on site. And as Jode said, very excited to meet all of you once we're in person in Dublin in just a few weeks. One of my main roles is I oversee the student success coordinators while we're on site, who will all be your mentors and guidance throughout the semester. They're actually on this call as well. There'll be a slide of their photos, but they'll be your go-to people while you're on site. They're already very busy going through training, preparing for your arrivals, and getting some program planning going too for all some fun activities. And I'll pass it over to Ashley.
Hello, everyone, or Céad Míle Fáilte in Irish, 100,000 welcomes. It's so great to have you on the webinar today. And I work at UCD Global as the Global Study Abroad Senior Officer. So in my role, I oversee all of our first-year study abroad programs, the largest and most longstanding of which is the NUN program. My accent might give me away here. I am not originally from Dublin. I actually grew up in the US in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I worked in the US higher education system for around 10 years before switching over to work full-time in international education at University College Dublin. We are so thrilled to have your students back on our campus again this year. This will be the 13th cohort of NUN students studying at UCD. And so we really look forward to welcoming you in just a few short weeks to Dublin.
Awesome. And here, as mentioned, our student success coordinators who are also on this call, but you unfortunately cannot see them, but some photos of them. And again, these will be the people on site, have gone through rigorous training and very much prepared for students to arrive. And again, planning a lot of programs. But you'll all get to know them very well once you're on site, and some familiar faces too when you arrive at the airport in Dublin.
Wonderful. So to get us started, we just want to share a little bit about the place in which you'll be studying. So to start, just to give a little bit of a highlight, a few spotlights on Ireland as a country. First and foremost, we want to make sure you know that Ireland is a very safe place. And I'm sure any parents or families on the call are probably happy to hear that. Ireland was ranked 3rd on the Global Peace Index in 2023. I think only Iceland and New Zealand were ranked ahead of us, but generally a very safe place to live and work and study. It's also a very young place with 50% of the population under the age of 34 and about 100,000 students, college students in Dublin and across the country. So very young, very educated, lively place to live. And it's also a very happy place. So 17th in the World Happiness Index as of 2023. And I can really attest to this myself, having moved here and lived in Ireland the last number of years. It is a very welcoming, friendly culture. And so we look forward to having you join us. Okay, we can move on again to the next slide just to give a brief spotlight on Dublin. Dublin is a very accessible city, so it is our capital city, but it's well connected to many other cities in Ireland, including Galway, Cork, Limerick, or up in the north in Belfast. So it's very easy to see a lot of the country outside of Dublin if you're interested. It's compact and easy to navigate. You can walk. There's lots of public transportation options, and our campus is very accessible to the city center of Dublin. And Dublin is a great place in that it's you can it really has it all depending on what you're interested in. If you want to go for a sea swim down by the 40-foot and walk along Sandy Mount Beach, that's right, by campus, or you can go 30 minutes and be hiking in the beautiful Wicklow Mountains. And then additionally, it's very well connected to most European cities. So if you are looking to travel on occasion, that is also easily accessible to all of you. Okay, and moving on to the next slide. I think I've covered most of this, but just to note that Dublin has a population of 1.3 1.39 million. As I said, 100,000 of those are students. So it is a smaller place compared to the US. But 36.9 million US residents claim Irish ancestry. So there's a long history, and our two countries are very deeply connected. And then, of course, English is spoken by 99% of the population, but you will see the Irish language around the place on signs. You may hear it on occasion, and it is in some places spoken, particularly out in the west of Ireland. Okay, we can continue on. Just to give a little flavor of the city, this is the Halfpenny Bridge. It's in the city center of Dublin, and it connects the north side of the city with the south side of the city. It's called the Halfpenny Bridge because back in the day, it cost a halfpenny or half a penny to cross the bridge. Today, it's free to cross the bridge, but it's still a good example of just kind of the old and that's mixed in with the new within Dublin. It's really all at your fingertips there. And then again, we can move to the next slide, which is just a map of the Dublin County. And you can see where UCD is marked. It's about 5 kilometers south of the city center. And so it's very, maybe 20 minutes by bus to get into the city center. So very well connected, but a nice self-contained campus. And we can then continue on to just give a little bit more about the campus. So UCD, we're known as Ireland's global university. So UCD is the most international university in Ireland with over 8,500 international students. So you will be joining a large cohort of international students, which you'll be considered part of. It's also a very multicultural, diverse place to live and study. We have a beautiful parkland campus, so there's lots of green space. We have some lovely woodland walks. So if you need to go on a walk, or if you like to go on a run or a jog, or just clear your mind, that is all available around the campus and a great place to explore. And then, of course, we are, a priority of UCD is academic excellence. So we are ranked in the top 1% of higher education institutions worldwide. And that is a very important part of your experience with the NUN program. And then we also have excellent housing and residential facilities, which I'll talk a little bit more about in just a minute here. But as I said, we're located 5 kilometers south from downtown Dublin. And I hadn't mentioned we are a very old university. We were founded in 1854, but it's certainly modernized over time to now become Ireland's global university. Okay, we can continue to the next slide, which again, just to give you a little bit more about the places and spaces in which you'll be spending some of your time when you're with us on campus. The Gerard Manley Hopkins Center is where UCD Global is based out of. UCD Global is, excuse me, is our primary resource for all students, international students studying on campus. So if we have our global guides who are peers, mentors, and leaders who are also international students, and they're based at our front desk. So they're a great resource if you ever have a question, looking for a recommendation or advice. In addition to the NUN staff, you can always stop by UCD Global, and we're always happy to help and support in that way. The Newman Building, for any students that might be studying in the College of Art, Media, and Design, if your major falls within that college, you'll likely be spending some time in the Newman Building. It is our Arts and Humanities building. It's also one of our older buildings that has the largest lecture halls on campus. So if you have a larger lecture, you may be spending some time there as well. The O'Brien Center for Science, so any of our STEM-based students, our engineers, our nurses, that you will definitely be spending time in the O'Brien Center for Science. That's where many of your tutorials and labs will take place. And so that is a large complex, not far from the residential community. And then the Student Center, so this is really a hub for student life on campus. So we have our Student Center, which hosts our over 80 clubs and societies on campus, which if you have an interest that want to pursue, if you are looking to meet local students, joining a society is a great way to do that, and you are more than welcome to do so. We also have over 40 club sports, including things like soccer, American football, basketball, or other more traditional Irish sports like rugby, Gaelic football, and hurling. So if you're interested in trying something new, you can also join a club sport. And we have what's called Freshers Week early on in the semester, which is a large club fair, which is essentially an opportunity for students who are joining the university to join a society, try out for a sport. So it's a week long, full of student-centered events. So we certainly encourage all of the NUN students to check that out and consider getting involved on campus. And then finally, our James Joyce Library is an excellent place to study, hang out if you need academic support, or if you're looking to utilize the research piece or need to connect with a librarian. All of that can be facilitated through the James Joyce Library. Okay, continue on to the next slide. So in addition, I mentioned some of the facilities we have available on campus. So it is quite self-contained. There's a lot available to you right at your fingertips on campus. We have our gym and sports center, which includes an Olympic-sized swimming pool, sauna, jacuzzi, as well as complimentary fitness classes and dance studios. We have an on-campus cinema, which if you're looking to see, the latest film is right there on campus, as well as our debating chamber, which is often used for society events, similar to our drama theater. They're often used for more student-centered productions, events put on by student groups. Okay, and then continuing on again to just give a little bit more about the UCD Village, which is kind of our hub for any residential life activities and support. So for all of the NUN students, you'll be living on campus, and the UCD Village is open 24/7, so it is available for support if needed. We have a food hall there, so there's, if you don't feel like cooking a meal, or if you're looking for a hot meal, you can always check out the Village. We also have a supermarket, so if you forget, something at the grocery store, there is a supermarket on campus that has most kind of essentials and basic needs if you need to pick something up. We have a mini gym, which is just available to students that live on campus, as well as study spaces, music practice rooms if you're trying to keep up with an instrument. And it's also, most importantly, our central hub for UCD estate services. So that includes all of our emergency support, security, as well as if there's a maintenance issue. It's all based out of the UCD Village front desk, which again is open 24/7. So if you ever have a problem that's more urgent after hours, it needs to be addressed, you can always pop down to the Village and they can help connect you with the support, or there's a centralized number which you'll receive when you arrive on campus that you can call, and that is staffed 24/7 in addition to the NUN support available. Okay, let's continue on to talk about Belgrove Student Residence, is where all the NUN students will be living. I know this is often one people want to know a little bit more about. So you can see the photo in the back of the slide of Belgrove is an example of where students will be living. So it is formulated into a quad. So there is kind of a nice community of NUN students there. And each house has 6 flats or apartments in them, and each flat has 4 students living in it. So you'll have your own single bedroom, which is pretty nice for your first semester of college, but you'll share a bathroom with one other student. And then you'll also have shared kitchen facilities as well as a communal living space with your 3 other roommates. I should note that because you have access to a kitchen, and generally in Ireland and across Europe, because we're not in a traditional, US dormitory style of living, we do not have a meal plan available on campus. So students will need to cook their own meals. So if you don't have that skill set, I encourage you to learn to cook a few meals before you arrive on campus. I always suggest that if each person knows how to cook, 2 to 3 meals across your 4-person apartment, that will cover you for the week. And additionally, in terms of what's included in the room, when you're in your bedroom, there'll be a pillow and duvet provided. And in the kitchen, there is a microwave, stovetop, kettle, and toaster, as well as 2 mini fridges. We don't provide pots, pans, and cutlery, or bedding sheets and things like that. But the first thing you do when you arrive on campus, we will facilitate a trip to IKEA so that students can coordinate with their apartment mates and pick up any essentials that they need for the semester. And then additionally, laundry is available in the community. There's, communal centers for laundry for both washers and dryers, and you can pay for that using your U-Card, which is your student card, as well as the key to your room. But generally, the student residence is located about 5 minutes walking from most of those buildings I mentioned earlier, like Newman, O'Brien Center for Science, Gerard Manley Hopkins, or where UCD Globals is located. So it's very easily accessible to most campus amenities. I always joke, if you have a class at 8 a.m. and you wake up at 7:55, you can roll out of bed and still make it to class on time. There's no need to be late because it really is that close. Okay, and then we'll continue on. I think Jode's going to talk a little bit more about the programmatic elements of NUIN.
Indeed. Thanks, Aisling. Really appreciate you shedding a lot of light on Dublin and UCD to kick us off. And just before we jump into those programs, it's going to be really important to acknowledge that, yes, we're going to be an entirely different academic system and part of a different institution in UCD. But as part of being in a different country, we're going to have to subscribe to a different set of norms than perhaps, you were used to growing up in the US. So I've got a couple on the screen in front of us. By no means are these an exhaustive list. As part and parcel of living in Ireland and spending some time there, you'll become accustomed to all sorts of different etiquettes and norms. But just to highlight a few, as Aisling mentioned, buses are going to be a real common method of transport to get from UCD into downtown Dublin. And one of the hallmarks of Irish society is always making sure that you thank and acknowledge the bus driver when exiting the bus. Queuing is also very much a way of life in Dublin and certainly in Ireland as well. Alongside being polite and conversational with service workers, I'm sure at some point in the semester you may go out to enjoy a meal with some friends or some family who potentially come to visit. And being polite and conversational with service workers is one of those norms as well. And then finally, tipping isn't required, but is becoming increasingly common, certainly in Dublin and more widely Ireland as well. Typically, when people do tip, they don't tip the the normal 18-20% that you would experience in the US. It would be closer to 10%, but that's something that we'll leave to your discretion as you are out and about. And then just a couple of others as well that I was thinking about when I was preparing for this presentation. Driving in Ireland, it occurs on the left-hand side of the road. So crossing roads can be particularly perilous if you're looking the wrong way for cars. So that's something to keep an eye out for. And then lastly, one shock that I had when I came to the US to study abroad was the use of Fahrenheit. In Ireland, Celsius is going to be very common when describing the temperature for when you're going outside. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And as I said, these are very far from exhaustive lists, and it's going to be part of your learning experience, experiencing different etiquettes, different norms, and subscribing to them as well. And with that, I believe I am going to pass it over to Nick to talk a little bit about some of the programs. Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Jode. As mentioned earlier, the coordinators that we will have on site with you all will be planning a lot of programs for you. So in addition, as Aisling was mentioning, UCD offers so many clubs and organizations for you all to get involved with, and that's something that we very much encourage you to do as well. But in addition to UCD programs and activities, Northeastern staff also will plan programs for you on a monthly basis. Some examples that have been used in the past, there's like the Hop On, Hop Off Dublin tour, Dublin Castle, Gaelic Games. Some of the programs that are being planned currently for you all in September, there's an Irish film that some of the coordinators are planning, a paint your own tote bag, and also an archaeological museum trip. So just some things to look forward to, in addition, again, to all the things offered through UCD. In addition to those programs, each coordinator will be planning what we call a family dinner. So all students will be placed in what we call family groups. So just a small cohort of students. It's going to be about 20 to 23 students, just with the size of students we have heading to Ireland this year. But once a month, students will have the opportunity to explore different restaurants around Dublin with their family groups. So coordinators will also be planning that, sending you information. A lot of the times restaurants will ask for set menus. And so coordinators may also send out a survey asking your preferences on meals, making sure that they all fit dietary restrictions and needs too. So please keep a lookout in the next couple weeks from your coordinators. They'll be sending some additional information in regards to programs too. And then traditions as well. So traditions are something that happen across all NUN sites. They are larger scale programs for the entire cohort of NUN students at the site. So some examples that we do for traditions, first day of school photos. So this is a great way for you to just get ready for your first day of school. You can go and stop by. Usually coordinators have something set up in a neutral spot. You can get your photo taken with some props. There's usually food provided as well. Husky Day happens on the same day across all sites too. This year, I believe it'll be October 8th. So just some Husky pride while you're on site, so that you feel some sort of tied to Northeastern, some celebrations there. We do a postcards event where you can come pick up some postcards and write back to family and friends at home. Some Halloween programming too around Halloween time. Thanksgiving, we partner with UCD for our Thanksgiving tradition where you can opt in if you would like to a typical standard Thanksgiving meal. And then we do a final semester banquet. So this is a final event of the semester where students come together, typically before finals and before departures, just as a nice celebration of the semester that you just had in Dublin, and a nice goodbye as well to the staff on site, and a see you soon to the rest of your cohort before you head back home and into Boston in the spring.
Thanks, Nick. And switching gears a little bit now to talk about the excursions. So the excursion is an overnight trip that takes place designed to help students explore a part of Ireland that is not Dublin. The excursions are perhaps my personal highlights of the entire semester in Ireland, and students are often incredibly excited to go and explore somewhere new beyond the city that is Dublin. They do form a mandatory part of the NUN program, so attendance is very much expected across all students. This year, the weekend dates at the excursion will be taking place on either September the 19th through the 21st or September 26th through 28th. The cohort will be split in two, and you will be expected to attend one of those 2 weekends. We will share details as to which weekend you will be attending closer to the date, so keep an eye on your emails for them. But it's a great opportunity for, as I said, students to go and see the west of Ireland, on the other side of the country. We're typically based in Galway, and there's plenty of things that we do in and around the surrounding area to go and, help students explore parts of Ireland that they ordinarily wouldn't do. And then we've got some photos coming up. So this is Kylemore Abbey. It's a stately house that we go to visit as part of the excursion, and it has some real wonderful Victorian walled gardens. And then perhaps most famously, we go and see the cliffs on the west coast of Ireland as well. Some of the largest cliffs in Europe, I believe it was. The weather isn't always as beautiful as it is here. Sometimes it is very cold and wet, but it's a great trip nonetheless. And for me, probably the most, the real highlight of the entire semester as well. And now switching gears a little bit into academics, I think it's really easy to be excited by all the wonderful traditions, all the wonderful programs, all the wonderful things that you're going to be wanting to do in Dublin. And I'm not here saying that you shouldn't be excited by them, but I am here to remind you that the real centerpiece of this program is academics. Yes, we want you to go out and have fun. Yes, we want you to go out and explore Dublin. Yes, we want you to go out and explore the country. But all of that is secondary towards your academic performance. And these next few slides are going to speak a little bit about some of the details regarding that academic process in Ireland. So the first question I get from students and indeed parents is, how will attending the NUN program impact my academic progress during my time at Northeastern? And the short answer is it won't. During your time in Ireland, you will be taking a full semester's worth of classes, and you will leave with a full semester's worth of credits that will be equivalent to what you would have achieved had you been in the Boston campus. So there's going to be no difference with regards to your progress throughout your degree. What I also really want to highlight, which is going to be important, is that the letter grades that you achieve in Ireland at UCD will be included in your undergraduate GPA, and they will appear on your transcript. So this is not a semester that you can take as a holiday and forget about. These grades are going to impact your academic record and your academic performance here at Northeastern. So that's something that's going to be really important to keep an eye on. The classroom environments that you're going to experience when you're in Ireland are going to vary depending on the class that you take. Some of them have large lectures, some of them have small sections, some of them include labs, some of them include design studios, some of them have field trips. Some of them are Northeastern exclusive classes, and with some classes you are mixed in with UCD students. So it's really just going to depend upon the classes that you're taking, but it's something just to be aware of when you're thinking about your academic performance at UCD. And the other thing I want to highlight as well is that the classes that you will be taking at UCD have been co-designed by Northeastern faculty. During the spring and the summer, the faculty from both institutions sit down and get together, and they really plan out what that class is going to look like. That means it's going to align to Northeastern's expectations with regards to content and indeed with regards to rigor. And what that means is that there will be no holes in your learning when you're transitioning back to the Boston campus in January. And you'll be able to make that transition incredibly smoothly because those classes have been tailor-made for you. And then lastly, a program requirement of the NUN program is that you take a local experiential learning course. There are a variety of courses for you to choose from. Popular ones last year have included some on Irish folklore, but you should already have been connected with your academic advisors who have helped you through that class selection process. If there are any questions about it, I would encourage you to reach out to your undergraduate college. They'll be the ones who are best placed to help you navigate any remaining questions or concerns you have regarding the class selection process. And then something I don't want to spend too long on is just the letter grade conversions. So the letter grade you receive at UCD will be converted into a Northeastern grade, and this is the grade that will appear on your undergraduate transcript. So you can see if for any class at UCD you receive a B+, it will be converted to an A- at Northeastern, and that's just to nullify any institutional differences that exist within grading and examining processes. You really shouldn't have to worry too much about this slide. Fundamentally, students who work hard, plan, and prepare for their studies are the ones that are successful and the ones that get their higher grade. And the conversions will take care of themselves. At no point in the semester should you be thinking, okay, if I get a B at UCD, that'll be equivalent to a B+ at Northeastern, and that's going to help my averages. You should be working as hard as you can to achieve the best grade you possibly can, and by doing so, the letter grades and the conversions will take care of themselves. Ashley.
Great, thanks, Joe. So just to expand a little bit on what you might expect in terms of your academic experience at UCD, I want to talk a little bit about some of the differences in the Irish and US education system. We also recognize that you're going through a lot of transitioning from high school and secondary school to the college level. So a lot of questions we get are around some of the structure of how your academic experience will work. So just to provide a bit of an overview, like Jode said, we have worked very closely with the academic and integration and planning team at Northeastern to ensure that your modules are aligned and will support your degree progress. About a third of the modules are bespoke NUN modules, and about 2/3 are UCD modules where you'll be, able to connect with other local Irish students as well as other international students. In terms of the format of your classes, we use the module format at UCD. So that a module will be composed of several different elements. First, the lecture, that's typically will meet weekly, maybe twice a week, depending on the discipline and the type of module. But that tends to be more of a one-way conversation. It's more of a delivery of information. Many modules will also have a seminar or tutorial component, and that is a smaller group, a smaller subset of students, and that tends to be more of a two-way conversation. That's where if you have a question or if you want to review content, that's a great place for that to take place. It's also where some of your continuous assessment will take place. So if you have a quiz or a weekly discussion post, that's where that will be, assessed. And then on occasion, you may also have a lab or experiential learning component, and that might be, on every few weeks that takes place, again, depending on the module and the discipline of study. And that's really your opportunity to take what you're learning in the classroom and apply it to a real world setting. So all of that will make up your academic experience. A question we often get is, how will I be assessed? So if you are coming from a US high school experience, you might be used to smaller assignments that occur more frequently, like a weekly homework assignment or a weekly quiz. At the college level, and this will likely be true at Northeastern as well, you can expect less of that continuous assessment, and you may be asked to work, autonomously and independently, both inside and outside of the classroom to meet a larger deadline or a larger goal, such as a larger midterm and final exam, or a paper and a portfolio, or a group presentation and a midterm. And again, all of that will depend on the discipline of study and your particular major. That being said, in terms of communication, in high school, you might have had a teacher that sent you reminders or have broken down a larger assignment into smaller bite-sized goals. A lot of that will now really be on the student's responsibility. And so, for example, if you might have had a teacher that reached out to you if you didn't hit a homework assignment or meet a deadline, at the college level, this type of communication is really a courtesy. A professor or a module coordinator might reach out to you if they notice you don't turn something in or if you miss something, but really that onus and that responsibility is on the student. So if you need support, or if you are struggling, or if you feel like you might miss a deadline, we strongly encourage you to communicate that, ideally proactively. And really, we want to empower the students to own your academic experience and really be engaged in a way that might feel different than a traditional US high school experience. Another question I often get is, when will I get my timetable? And we know you're eager for that. So the short answer is that you'll receive it during your on-site orientation when you arrive. Module registration takes place much later in the summer in Ireland than in the US. And this is because the entire process to be admitted to college looks very different than in the US. So while you all may have written essays and taken exams and submitted a CV and known since even January where you were attending university, in Ireland, all of the students who plan to attend college take an exam at the end of their high school or secondary school experience. And the results of that exam determine where they go to university. The results of that exam still are not out even yet. They come out in about 2 weeks' time. And so as an Irish student attending college across the country, you would get the results of your exam, determine where you're going to school, pick up, yourself up, in some cases, move across the country and begin college about 2 weeks later. So it just looks very different. And because of that, all of our module registration for all students occurs, in late August and September. And so I also want to note that module registration is a manual process. So you are being individually uploaded into each of your modules in your timetable, which it takes time. And so there may be a point where you see, okay, I only have one module, but my friend has 3. And I just wanted to say that that's very normal. It's a manual process. It takes some time, and that's not cause for alarm. It just depends on your particular major, or in some cases combined major, and your discipline of study. And so all students will be in 4 modules by the time classes start. And then another question I get is, can I add or drop a module? And there will be an add drop period in the first week of school. And so if students need to make academically necessary changes to your timetable, we can facilitate that in consultation with Northeastern, because we want to make sure that first and foremost that you're supporting your degree progress and set up for success academically. That being said, students must maintain at least 20 units, which is typically 4 modules throughout the entire semester. And that is a process and a requirement from Irish immigration, because while students, whether you're visa required or not, are able to be in the country, to stay in the country throughout the semester, it's a requirement that they maintain their status as a full-time student. And to do so, that means they need to be in 4 modules or 20 units. So again, by the end of that add drop period, students should be, in 4 modules that they feel confident that they'll remain in throughout the duration of the semester, because we won't be able to facilitate further changes after that. Okay, and then in terms of moving on to just support, we know you are all very academically oriented students. You would not be attending Northeastern if you weren't. And so, but again, we've just spoken about how you're going through a number of different transitions. So if you do find that you ever need academic support, at UCD, we have both the Math Center and Writing Center. So you can avail of both of those services using your student card. And we hear about 2 modules each year. We hear about calculus and we hear about chemistry, and they are certainly difficult modules, and they are specifically designed for Northeastern to prepare you for what you will encounter when you return in the spring. And so I always just highlight those and recommend, if you're registered in one or both of those, to take advantage of the resources both through Northeastern as well as the Math Center when you arrive. And then for any students that might have a diagnosed learning disability or need academic or classroom and exam supports, we also have our Access and Lifelong Learning Center. So students will need to register with Access and Lifelong Learning. You can do so once you arrive at UCD, and you'll need to attend a needs assessment where you'll meet with a member of the Access and Lifelong Learning team to just review your needs and determine, what accommodations are reasonable and sufficient. I would say generally a lot of the accommodations will look quite similar to what you might experience in the US. One exception would be extra time on exams. So in the US, I understand it's quite common for students to receive time and a half or maybe even double time on exams. I just want to flag that in Ireland, the most that a student would receive is an additional 10 minutes per hour of the exam, which can sometimes feel like an adjustment or a shock. But I will say that exams are designed, in order for that to be an accommodation and to be, reasonably met. And so again, if you have questions, you can always reach out to our Access and Lifelong Learning Center about what supports are available, but they also are happy to meet with students once you arrive in September. And I'll pass it to Joe to talk about the Northeastern support.
Yeah, thanks, Aisling. I think it's really important to remember that as students, starting this NUN process in a few short weeks, you're going to be students of 2 institutions. So Aisling's spoken a little bit about a lot of the services UCD has available. It's also important to remember that Northeastern has a lot of services available to you as well. The one I want to highlight is Northeastern's disability access services. If you are looking for those extra accommodations, it's going to be really important you register with them as well. They'll be able to provide some services to you whilst you are in Ireland, but they're also going to ensure that you have a real smooth transition back to Boston in January. In addition to that, there's a lot of peer tutoring resources that Northeastern offer as well that you will have full access to, even though you will be in Ireland. And the only thing that I really want to additionally mention on this slide as well is the act of self-advocacy. If you come up to Nick, myself, or any one of the coordinators the day before your exam, the 2 days before your exam, requesting help, saying, I need a lot of help. There were things I didn't understand. I haven't been working as hard as I should have been. It's going to be really difficult for us to get you the help that you need in that shorter time span, which is why it's going to be really important that as soon as you feel yourself struggling, as soon as you realize you need more help, or even actually if you don't need any more help, you're actually just thinking, it's going to be good to have these services available to me, even though everything's going to be going fine, you need to come and find one of us and speak to one of us. I know it can be a little bit difficult and daunting asking for help when you don't really know the people you're going to be asking for help, but a good amount of my job, Nick's job, and the coordinator's job is going to be to getting to know you. And so hopefully we make that process a little bit easier, but really self-advocate for any support and services you need, because between the two institutions, we have a lot of resources that we are able to give you, but we won't know what resources you'll need, what resources you're even looking for, unless you have that initial motivation or drive to come and speak to us. So that's an important piece to keep in your mind throughout the semester. And with that, some important dates, Nick.
Yes, so September 1st will be arrival day for you all. And then following that will be on location orientation. So I know a lot of people in the chat have been asking when the best time is for families to come and visit their students. We highly recommend coming more towards Thanksgiving time, just because, again, September and October are very busy for the students. Even that first week, there's a lot packed in for the students, and they're getting a lot of information that is necessary for them to know for the remainder of the semester. So even if you plan to come and help your student move in, there really won't be much free time for you to see your student otherwise, maybe 1 or 2 dinners throughout that week. But again, you'll also want your student to be meeting other students. This is the chance to do that and really acclimate before classes begin on September 8th. As Jode mentioned, there'll be 2 weekends for the excursions to the west of Ireland. So September 19th to the 21st and the 26th to the 28th. Students will find out which weekend they'll be going on the day of arrival. So that first day or week, they'll be finding out which weekend they'll be going on. And then October 27th is a bank holiday. And then December 6th through 20th is final exams, and then departure on the 21st. Keep in mind, there's also a few courses that students may be involved with that require some field trips. So just want to remind you all that the September and October will be very busy for you all. You're acclimating to courses, you're getting used to Dublin and your new schedule. So the main focus is academics, but also getting to know people in your cohort and enjoying the city that you're in. So September, October will be very busy, which is why we suggest to families to come more towards Thanksgiving time and in November. Thanks, Jode.
Perfect. Okay, thanks all. So in terms of visas, if you are a visa required student, you have already heard from me in terms of some of the items that you need to apply for your visa. But while most students are traveling either from the US, EU member state, the EEA, or Switzerland or UK, you won't require a visa. You're very welcome to enter the country. If you're a US citizen, you're able to enter Ireland for up to 90 days. However, because the semester is longer than 90 days, you will need to complete what's called the Irish Residence Permit process, or IRP, and get your IRP card. This is a legal requirement to stay in the country. It is very important. But the good news is there isn't anything that you need to do until you arrive in Dublin. Once you arrive on site, we will go over during on-site orientation more specific instructions, but essentially you will need to secure an appointment to get to what's called register with the INIS, and that will allow you to get your Irish residence permit. Typically, US students and folks are you'll receive a stamp when you enter Dublin Airport. Typically, that would be for 90 days, though it is up to the individual immigration officer at the border at point of entry. But that will essentially determine how long you have to receive your IRP card. So we encourage students, as soon as you arrive and your classes begin on September 8th, that you begin to try and secure an appointment. I will say typically the most difficult part of the process is securing the appointment, and it is something we recommend students do every single day until they're able to secure that appointment. We understand it can be tedious, but it is, again, a legal requirement for you to be in the country. And once you have that appointment, it's very imperative that you attend. If you have class, that is an excuse to miss class. If you have, other activities, this is of the utmost importance that you attend and secure that appointment and get your IRP card. Again, we'll provide more information and more specific instructions, and we also have support through both UCD Global as well as your coordinators. We'll be reminding you and following up just to ensure that you complete the process. But again, there's nothing that needs to be done right now. Once you arrive in Ireland, that's when this will be required. Okay, continue on.
All right. I'm just going to talk a little bit about documents that you should have printed out and in your carry-on bag with you when you go to the airport and arrive in Ireland. There are more details on each of these in the visa guide on our website, but I'll just go through quickly here some recommendations. Now, of course, you need to have your passport with you if you're going to be leaving the country and arriving in a new country. And if you are traveling on a passport that requires you to have a visa, then you need to have your visa documents as well. Um, Most of the time when you enter a country, that's all you need to show the immigration agent. But these other items we recommend you have just in case the immigration agent you meet with wants to see additional information. Um, so a few things, we recommend that you have your NUN program enrollment letter, which is in your application status check when you log into the portal. That's one of the documents you can download. You also will be getting an offer letter from UCD that just says that you have been accepted to the study abroad program at UCD, and this is why you're entering the country. We will be getting those letters to you this month before you leave for Ireland, so be sure to watch your Northeastern email for that letter. Other things that can be good to have on hand is proof of your personal health insurance. Remember, everybody needs to maintain their own personal health insurance while they are traveling to Ireland. You also get emergency cover through UCD, but you need to maintain your own personal health insurance as well. Sometimes, in a rare occasion, they might want to see proof of funds. So this could just be a printout of a bank statement or something like that, proof that you have money to support yourself while you're in the country. And make sure you have your complete flight itinerary printed out. They basically want to see proof that you plan to go home eventually, if you're thinking of this from the perspective of an immigration agent, right? So those are the documents that you should have with you in your carry-on item. And the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about what else you should pack for the trip to Ireland. Yeah, so the short answer is you don't need as much as you think you do. All right. We basically recommend that you lay out everything you're planning to take with you and then put half of it away. The key point here is you need to be able to carry all of your luggage on your own. There's nobody we don't have service to help you carry your luggage. You have to get it from, baggage claim to the bus, from the bus to the dorm. So less is more. There is a packing guide on the website and more information on packing in the Canvas modules, which again, hopefully you've all been completing. You can refer back to those. And of course, we're also recording this session today, and you can refer back to that later. Now, your rooms are supplied with a pillow and a duvet. And then, as we've talked about, we will go to IKEA on arrival so that you can get your own sheets and towels and things like that. So you don't need to take up precious space in your suitcase with those kind of items. But in general, plan to dress in layers, wear things more than once. Remember, there are stores in Ireland, so if you find that you need things, you will be able to get them. And you're probably going to want to do some shopping while you're there. So leave some space in that luggage for souvenirs and things like that on the way home. One recommendation I would definitely have is to bring some kind of comfort item from home, something to make your space feel like home, some kind of self-care item that you need, maybe when you're feeling homesick, maybe a framed picture of your pet, whatever it is that makes you kind of brings you some comfort in times when you might be feeling a little homesick. And one more thing you need to pack on the next slide is an outlet adapter. So the power outlets in Ireland are a different shape. And you're going to need an adapter to be able to plug your electronics into the wall. You can get one of these in the travel aisle at Target, at Amazon, or even the airport. Um, and not only is the shape of the outlet different, but the voltage coming out of the wall is different as well. So many devices like computers or phone chargers are able to handle that voltage difference. They can, and there won't be a problem. However, there are some things like hair dryers or hair straighteners that just can't handle the different voltage. So leave those items home and purchase new ones when you arrive in Dublin, or else they'll melt, basically. All right, so once you've packed, you have to get to Dublin. So with that, I hand it off to Jode.
Indeed. Thank you, Melanie. And just before we jump into some of the stuff about Departure Day, the following information on the screen is going to be really pertinent to you if you are on a group flight. So the first thing I just want to flag is the Smart Traveller Enrollment Program, or the STEP program. This is just for US citizens, and you can register your travel plans with the US Embassy through the State Department's Smart Traveller Enrollment Program. We strongly encourage you to register, as it is a free service and it will allow the US State Department to better assist citizens abroad in the event of an emergency. So that's obviously for our US citizens. And engaging in that that STEP program is going to be possible as well if you're an independent traveler. So that's if you're on the group flight or an independent flight as well. Other things regarding group flights, just keep an eye on your emails for information about your flight. We'll monitor delays, so if your group flight is delayed, don't worry about it. We'll have that information with us and we will wait for you at the airport. If you do miss a connection or miss your flight and need to rebook, contact Advantage Travel. And then, as I mentioned, we will be at Dublin Airport waiting for you to collect you. And it'll be real nice if you could wear Northeastern gear or colours, just so that when you are on that group flight, you can see other Northeastern students who will be heading to Ireland as well, and maybe start making those relationships and just for reassurance that you're not in this process alone. If you are a independent traveler, again, if you're a US citizen, please enroll in that Smart Traveller Enrollment Program. If you land in the morning of the group flights, space permitting, we will also be able to take you to UCD with us. What I would ask is you keep an eye out for your emails. In those emails, we will tell you what times our group flight transportation will be leaving Dublin Airport. And if you are an independent traveler who lands somewhere around the time that our group transportation is leaving, just reply to that email and let us know that you would like to join us on that group transportation, and we will make sure we add you to our roster and that we can then take you as well to UCD with us. And if you get delayed as well, and you're an independent traveler, just make sure you reach out to one of the staff. We will have in the email we send you contact information. And if you're just going to be late, just please do let us know, just so that we're aware of where you are, how late you're going to be, and so we're not waiting for you when actually you might have a couple of hour delay. So that's going to be really important. But the thing I just want to flag is just keep an eye on those emails. This information I've just given you will be in those emails with more detail as well. So just keep an eye out for that. And then arrival day. So again, this will all be provided to you in the email that we're going to send out before you arrive in much greater detail, but just so you get a high level overview of what you can expect. You'll check in with NUN staff at UCD. That'll be Nick, myself, or any one of the coordinators will register you and sign you up, just so that we know you're here. The journey from Dublin Airport to UCD can take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, depending on traffic, so please be aware of that. There'll then be the opportunity to grab a bagged lunch. You'll all be arriving, if you're on the group flights, in the morning. And most independent travelers, if you're not already in Ireland and you're coming from the US, will also probably be landing in the morning. So you'll have the late morning to grab a bagged lunch, begin unpacking, start making friends, and just get used to the surroundings. And then from early afternoon through to mid-afternoon, we will start taking students to IKEA. There, they'll be able to pick up any items that they need that they weren't able to pack. We'll provide students with a packing list in our communications with students as well. And then once you've been to IKEA, you'll return to UCD for a dinner and an early night, because we will be starting at 10 a.m. the next day. One thing about arrival day that I do want to flag is it is the most stressful day of the semester, by far and away. For those of you coming from the West Coast or even further, you will be on long flights. You will wake up tired if you've slept at all on those flights, and then you will have a day which is pretty full on, is go, go, go. So parents, I'm speaking to you right now that when the students will call you at the end of the arrival day and they seem a bit overwhelmed with everything, they seem a little bit tired with everything, please don't worry. We will have just over 170 students in Dublin, and they will all be feeling that way. They were feeling this way last year when we were on site. They felt this way, you know, the year before when I was on site as well. So just please, for the process of arrival day, don't be alarmed that they are tired, that they are overwhelmed, that they are going to be experiencing some levels of self-doubt as well. All of that is going to be very normal. And as soon as they, you know, start to build up a routine, start to develop some habits, we will see that level of worry and fear begin to diminish as well. So that's something really important to keep in the back of your mind. And the other thing I want to flag in terms of packing as well, Melanie was speaking about it earlier, but please make sure please make sure you bring some toilet paper with you as well. The Belgrove student residences won't have toilet paper when you arrive, and you know, I know airplane food can do all sorts, so just keep that in mind as well, if that's something that you're likely to need as well. And obviously some hand wash as well will probably be a good idea as well. Moving on to speaking about a mobile phone when you are abroad, it's going to be a key requirement of the program that all students have a working mobile phone, just so that they're able then to call somebody in the event of an emergency. We see around 80 to 90% of our students stay on US carriers but upgrade to international plans. However, if you do wish to have a local carrier, we are able to help organize and arrange that for you. But it's going to be real important that you do have that working phone. And then lastly as well, on this slide, I just want to speak to you to encourage you to establish some communication norms. Parents, if you expect a call every day, make sure you're explicit in telling your student that, otherwise they might end up calling you once every week, and then that's going to lead to quite a lot of tension. So please make sure you have these conversations before you head over to Ireland, because they're much easier to have in person. And similarly with banking and budgeting, most of our students keep their US bank accounts. There is no requirement to set up an Irish account unless that's something you really want to do. But please be aware of international transaction fees. Speak to your bank if this is something that they are likely to do to you. I also want to flag that American Express is not widely used in Ireland. So if that is the bank of your choice, it may be worth just organizing something else. And then similarly to discussing communication norms, set up budgeting norms as well. How much money will you typically be looking to spend per week, per month? Groceries cost somewhat similarly to what you would expect them to cost in the US, so that should be a good benchmark. But again, students can spend far more than that if they're eating out every night, but also far less than that if they're being really economical with their money as well. It's all going to be reliant on that conversation that you will have just to ascertain what a successful budget for you will look like. And we are almost finished now. Speaking a little bit about health and safety. Aisling, do you want to kick things off?
Yes, no problem. So we know, again, health and safety is our #1 priority for all of the students participating in the NUN program. On campus, we have available for students our student health service. So if you fall ill and you need to see a GP, or as well as our UCD counseling center. So if you do feel like maybe you're homesick or aren't feeling mentally supported, you can arrange to speak with a counselor as well. These, I will say, are great services to have on campus. However, they're not necessarily designed for regular ongoing care. It's typically more designed for things that may come up throughout the semester and as you go through your NUN experience. If you do have any regular appointments with a doctor or a therapist or counselor, psychiatrist, anything like that, we do strongly encourage you to consult with your GP, with your health insurance, and set up a plan for support that's going to work for you while you're in Ireland. Just because if you do have support in place, we want to make sure that's matched while you're in Dublin, but that may not be necessarily able to be facilitated directly on campus. We also have St. Vincent's Hospital just down the road from UCD, which is a 24 emergency department. And so that is very close and very easily accessible if there is a true emergency or something that absolutely needs to be addressed in a timely manner. And then additionally, we also have the Mater Rapid Hospital Rapid Injury Clinic, as well as we have services both eDoc and Doc on Duty, which offer telehealth appointments during after hours as well on weekends. So if there is a situation that's not necessarily at the hospital level, but that is timely and that perhaps can't wait overnight or wait through the weekend, you can avail of those options as well to be seen. All right, we can keep going. And then prescription medication. So this is a really important, if anyone is taking prescription medicine, it's very important that you have your prescription in your original bottle with the prescription or a note from your doctor outlining, what it is, what it's for. And we strongly recommend wherever possible to secure a semester-long supply. Medicine looks different in Ireland in terms of what's available, the quantity in which it's prescribed. And I will say substances that are perhaps more common in the US, an example I always use is ADHD medication, are actually considered controlled substances in Ireland and are very difficult to secure, if not impossible, for a student only in the country for a short semester experience. So please, consult with your GP, as well as your health insurance. And again, wherever possible, please try and secure that full semester supply. And shipping medication is not recommended. It won't make it through customs and it's unlikely to reach you if it's put in the mail. And so we do strongly recommend having it again with you in your hand luggage so that you have access to it throughout the semester. And then if you have questions, the email address here is a great resource through Northeastern that can help consult if you're not sure if your specific, prescription is allowed in that type of quantity or is available in Ireland. You can connect with this email address and they can help advise from there. Slide. Medicover insurance. So as Melanie mentioned, we at UCD, we do provide Medicover health insurance. This is accident and emergency insurance policy. Again, just designed for if something unexpected were to occur and perhaps you find yourself in the hospital, this would be in addition to your own private health insurance. I'll also just name kind of generally in this health and safety area that we'll have a full security briefing with students during their on-site orientation, as well as we've arranged for the U.S. Embassy to come speak to the NUN students during on-site orientation just to talk through U.S. citizen services available to them while they're abroad. And then I'll pass it to discuss a little bit more about the Northeastern support as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Aisling. Yeah, as you see on here, personal travel forms. So some questions that have popped up in the chat are, am I allowed to travel outside of Ireland throughout the program and what I need to do? So the personal travel forms will be located on campus. This is a requirement for you to fill out if you are planning to stay outside of Dublin. So if you plan to travel outside of the country for the weekend, or even if say families visiting and you plan to stay at their Airbnb or hotel, we still have students fill out this form. This is more for security and safety reasons. For example, say, there is a fire emergency on campus. We would like to know what students are, still on site versus not. So this is why it's an important form. The students will be hearing multiple times from on-site staff to make sure that they fill this out. It'll be reminded through the newsletter and through all programming activities. So something to just be reminded of. There's also, in addition to the UCD services on campus, Find at Northeastern. So Find is a program that allows you to utilize any of the counseling services from abroad. So this will also be discussed more once we're on site and how to utilize it and find those resources, but just so that you know that it's there. And we can go to the next, Jode.
Thanks, Nick. Sorry, I'm going to jump in here.
Yeah.
Just speaking a little bit about an app which is going to be available to all Northeastern students. This is the Crisis 24 Horizon app. Just in the interest of time, I won't spend too long speaking about this, but this will be available, full information will be available on the Northeastern's NUN website. But it's going to be an app that's downloadable on the App Store and Google Play. You can sign in with your Northeastern University email to get full access to it. And essentially what it is a travel app which will allow you to stay informed about any sort of event which is going to be happening within your vicinity. It's something that we make all NUN students aware of and encourage them to download, just so that, you know, as it mentions, you can keep an eye on any information and stay aware of any alerts that are going to be happening in your vicinity, as another methodology of potentially keeping you safe when you are in Ireland. Sorry, Nick, back to you.
All good. Thanks, Jode. And just to finish off here, there will be the transition back to Boston in January. Spring housing applications usually come out around end of October. So we'll advise students to check their emails for that information. We'll be advising students to check your emails all semester. I talked about this with a lot of families in Boston a few weeks ago. If your student's telling you that they're not receiving information, they're most likely just not checking their emails. So please check your emails. A lot of the information your students are getting through their emails. So if they are coming to you telling you that, just see if they have checked their emails. We will also be reminding them that many times while we're on site. And then F1 visa, if applicable to any of the students. Spring course registration, the advisors from Boston will be coming to site in Dublin, usually in November as well, to meet with students and plan their course registration for the spring semester. And then in January, when the students arrive back in Boston, there'll be another orientation that students go through. And a lot of the on-site staff, including myself, will be back in Boston to orient the students back into the city. Some action steps for students. Again, reminder to pack smart. I know a lot of the students, when we said pack light or, you know, take everything that you want to pack and cut it in half, a lot of them, they're shocked faces. You'll be surprised with the amount of shopping that you're going to want to do while you're there, especially while you're traveling too. Just make sure that you're packing a bit lighter than you're expected. We also do donations at the end for any clothes that students don't want to bring home. So that's totally okay. But I know a lot of students usually tend to overpack from my experiences doing this program. Making sure that you have all the medications that you need, working with your academic advisors before you get to site, especially if you have any questions or concerns about academics, you'll want to reach out to them. As Aisling said too, learn some easy recipes. If you all come with about 2 recipes, that's about 8 recipes for one suite. And then again, checking your emails, keeping an eye out for important updates. And I just want to also highlight with Joe too, for students as an action step, have a sit-down conversation with your families, with your parents, about when you'll want to communicate while you're on site. We'll have families constantly reach out to our Boston office to then tell us on site, like, hey, can you go find Billy and tell him to text us back? It's been 2 weeks. And so don't be like Billy, and make sure to communicate with your families and parents on when you'll be keeping in touch throughout the semester. And then some action steps for parents. Discuss, again, your expectations with your students. Very important to find a common ground on when you'll want to communicate. And then that's also will be best to have that conversation once they get their course schedule the first week. Check in with your students about emails and deadlines they're receiving. Again, they will be getting information to their emails. So if they're saying that they don't have that information, just remind them to check their emails, as we will be doing again. And then wait until students receive their class schedules to plan your visit in the fall. And then here you can see nun@northeastern.edu. That is the general email. If you have any questions, maybe things that may not have been covered during the session today, please email that email so you can get your questions answered. And I believe that's everything we have for you all. Thank you so much for coming. I'm very excited to see you all in Dublin, to the students and families that are visiting. Hopefully get to see you as well throughout the semester. But yes, please reach out to this email if you have any questions. Keep an eye out for the Know Before You Go email that will be sent out in the coming weeks with additional information. And yeah, thanks again for coming.